I have great joy when I tell people about my career progression and they give me the blank stare of how did you have the confidence to do that? And really, like anything else, I mean, it was a risk in that I was starting a brand new business with no clients, and I didn't have 20 years in the profession prior, and why would anybody want to give me their money to manage?
No risk, no reward. We hear this all the time when it comes to investing. But what about your career? What if you asked, what is the risk of not making the change? With careers or investing, risk-free is return-free.
I was probably 60% motivated by what this idea I had could give me in terms of job satisfaction, meaningful work, and 40% motivated by thinking 20 or 25 years in the future and feeling remorse for not having tried it.
This is Mark Wojcik, and I'm wondering, how's your so-called career? Welcome to So-Called, the podcast that explores the why and how of work. On today's episode, we talk with Ron Gambassi, founder and owner of Gem State Investment Advisors, a wealth management firm. When we sat down, I asked Ron to explain what being a wealth manager entails, what he enjoys, what are the difficulties, and what's satisfying about the work.
Well, it entails being the steward of people's money, families, individuals, or nonprofit organizations, endowment funds, trying to grow the money to allow these people or organizations to achieve some goals that they're after. If you're a nonprofit, it might be helping them use money to achieve the mission that they set out to do. If it's a family, it might be helping them secure a comfortable retirement.
In this work, what is it that you enjoy about it?
Well, I enjoy helping people. That's one of my big motivations for getting into this work. Mm-hmm. It's very meaningful work. It's very important and powerful because if people have enough assets, they can live the life that they want to live. And it's very satisfying to know that we're an enabler to allow people or nonprofits to achieve the kinds of things they're hoping to achieve. It's a very big relationship component to this work, which is really satisfying. I take a lot of pride in the fact that people will let me into their lives that way. In fact, I'll often describe it to a couple that comes in talking about whether they'd like me to help with managing their money. I'll say, I'll point to each of them and say, the relationship you have with each other is the most intimate one in your life. The second most intimate relationship will be the one you have with me.
Okay.
Because their money is an intimate subject, and as long as we keep it in balance and use it as a tool to help them, achieve their life goals, then it's all good. It's when money gets out of balance in people's lives that problems arise.
Okay, so you talked about what you find enjoyable about the work. Are there aspects of the work that you don't find as enjoyable?
Well, in this particular work, as you might imagine, there's a ton of paperwork and
yes,
compliance issues and making sure all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted, and it's just a lot of heavy admin, and that's less fun. It's certainly a lot less fun than talking to people about their life goals and building portfolios and implementing portfolios and all the things that are really the fun part of this work. But it's a necessary part of the work, and you have to get it right, so we take it very seriously.
What do you find easy to do about your work, and what do you find difficult to do?
It's easy to build relationships with people, and when you're working towards the same goal, it's a lot of fun. So it sort of comes naturally and is easy. The difficult part of this work is because we're so tied into people's lives, bad things and unfortunate things happen in people's lives.
Sure.
The death of a spouse or illness or other kinds of things. And while it's a very weighty position to be in to help people through those types of life changes, it's very stressful also.
Sure.
And, not something we look forward to, but at the same time, I'm glad we're in a position to be able to do it and help people through difficult circumstances sometimes. If we can take the stressor of money, off of their shoulders, then we're doing a great service.
What is most satisfying to you?
I think when we're successful, we're helping people achieve their life goals, and that just feels wonderful. And when they know that, they have a partner who's the steward of their money, and they can sleep better at night, it's incredibly satisfying and rewarding.
Ron's multifaceted background includes several constants: analysis, building relationships, and risk management. He discussed his career progression as well as how he managed the risk of starting his own business.
So my background is varied. I went to engineering school and started my early profession as a computer scientist. Spent some years working in a lab and decided the lab environment was not for me, although the training was fabulous and I learned a lot about solving problems and doing analysis. After that, stayed in the technical world for a long time, but mostly for over a couple of decades in various management roles, and being responsible for different sized businesses and managing a profit and loss business and that sort of thing, which I love. So early on in my career, I knew rather than going down an engineering track, I was more suitable, my skills were more suitable to be in management and people development and leadership. And it was a great proving ground for me. And I did that for a lot of years and was getting a little older and always sort of had the itch of thinking about starting my own company and doing something on my own. And that's what brought me into what was a passion area of mine for a long time, which was investing in personal finance. And I found a way to also make it my career.
There's elements of all of those things in what you do now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a major analytical component to building portfolios and researching various types of investments. And I've always loved analysis, which is what got me in the technical career path, and very much just different kind of analysis in what we do now. There's a risk management component. When we manage money, really our job is to manage risk. Well, when you're running a large business or any kind of a business that's, success is determined by profitability, you're a risk manager. So the idea is take appropriate risk to make money in a business, or take appropriate risk to make money for a client if you're managing their money, and minimize the risk. You can't eliminate the risk and still make money, but you want to balance the risk. So that in those regards, the work is almost identical. You're a risk manager in one aspect of your career. You're a risk manager in another aspect, and relationship skills are important no matter what career you choose. Either relationships with peers and trying to get things done, or with people working on your staff, or with your superiors, with your clients. Relationships are key to getting things done.
How big a risk was changing careers to what you're doing now, and how did you manage that risk?
Well, either through ignorance or something else. It didn't seem like a very big risk at the time, but I have great joy when I tell people about my career progression, and they give me the blank stare of how did you have the confidence to do that? And really, like anything else, I mean, it was a risk in that I was starting a brand new business with no clients, and I didn't have 20 years in the profession prior. And why would anybody want to give me their money to manage? But I looked at it and I took a very calculated risk and said I had saved up some assets and knew that I could support myself and my family for a couple of years if this dream didn't come to fruition. And I always had the backup plan that I knew I was employable and I had a lot of great skills from my past work. And so I said, well, I'll give it 2 years and see what happens. If it doesn't pan out, I felt sure I could get a job working for somebody. I don't know if that was naive thinking, but I didn't have to worry about it.
Who influenced your thoughts and attitudes about work and career choice?
Wow, I would say lots of people. Certainly my parents, from a work ethics standpoint, I always saw them working really, really hard. My dad always held 2 or 3 jobs at a time to provide for his family. My mom took care of the home life, and they worked a ton. Certainly they were. I've had great mentors over the years, bosses in the past, or those are the not famous people. I've been a student of Abraham Lincoln, who I just think is the greatest example of a leadership character in our history, and read as much as I could about him, and so various sources, some mostly not famous people that you would never know, and some famous people that everybody knows.
Ron recommends building an informal network of mentors and making it easy for them to say yes when you ask for help. His advice? Seek out several opinions. Do your prep work first, and make sure you make good use of your time with your mentor.
In my case, I didn't think about it consciously. It sort of evolved. I would be interested in observing people who I really respected for their management skills or leadership skills. Some cases I worked for them, so I had a lot of opportunity to interact with them. And it would be more about, I never went and said, would you be my mentor? I would just bring issues or ideas or problems to the table and say, give me some ideas. How might you solve this kind of a thing? So a lot of folks became de facto mentors for me. It doesn't have to be this formal relationship where you have a scheduled day and time every month that you meet with a person. It's just lining up, I think, first and foremost with people who you share the same values with, and then respect their skills and can learn from them, and ask for a few minutes of their time to put a scenario on the table and get their thoughts, or test an idea you have, and then it sort of evolves. And I have found that most people are flattered to be in that role where they're helping you with some advice or helping you sort through an important issue.
Also, maybe a risk mitigation for
everybody.
Could be
a risk. Well. That's right. Everybody can feel comfortable with, what's the big deal about offering 15 minutes of my time to somebody once? But if they said, can I have an hour of your time every other week? In this day and age, regardless of what your role is, working in a university, working in your own business, working in a giant corporation, we're all so stretched for time. People would be reluctant to make a commitment like that, but anybody who cares, because they themselves were in a position where other people were helping them, most likely they'd be honored and flattered to offer a little bit of their time to somebody if they ask for it. But ask in a way that is so easy for somebody to say yes, without committing them to some long-standing kind of a thing, And there are great ways to prepare those kinds of things too, to identify the issue, the item that you're confused about, what the potential outcomes could be, the pros and cons of those outcomes, and then bring those things to somebody who may be in a unique position, or as many people as possible who you respect, who may be in a unique position to give you some feedback. At the end of the day, you're the one making the decision, but making the decision with varied inputs is most likely going to make your decision a better one and reduce your risk at the same time. The bigger the stakes, the more important it is to get people's input before you launch into some direction.
I asked Ron to talk about his career and how it evolved over time. His plan to launch a new career was also a discovery process that took time to develop. To what extent would you say your career has been planned versus discovered?
I would say my early career was planned. Maybe that was the first 25%, and then the next 75% was discovered.
Yeah.
What I found over the years, and this could be true in one company where you stay a long time, or different companies, or totally different careers that you might move into. It's all about building on a base of skills. And when people recognize that you have a certain skill set, that opens up doors for jobs, regardless of the industry, regardless of the company. And that's how you make this sort of circuitous route to exploring and doing all kinds of different things. And that's probably, looking back, what happened with me.
How did you go about, or what was your discovery process for moving into your current role?
So I sat down, and as I said, it was a few-year process, thinking about maybe scratching an itch I had for a period of time to want to try owning and running my own business. So that evolved over time for me. But I'm a person that likes to process a lot. So for me, that was a longer-term, slower kind of thing, to let it percolate a while. Other people, are much quicker on making those decisions. So first of all, it starts with your personality. I'm more analytical, so I went through a more methodical process. Ultimately, the two things I think that helped me the most was I wanted to be clear on what I wanted out of my work. So I said, what's going to make me love going to work every day? And I identified the things, and it was coming back to what you asked me about earlier. Some of these skills, like analytical skills or relationship building skills, and the love of the topic, the love of the subject area. So I was clear on all of that, and I knew first and foremost I wanted work that I was going to say to me was really meaningful work. And that means different things to different people. For me, it meant it had to have a component of helping people. It had to have a component of the subject matter that I loved dearly. And probably lower down the list, although not insignificant, was a component of being able to make money doing it. Money wasn't at the top of the list, but I'd say, it was probably the third thing
Sure.
on the list for me. And I was very clear on, once I put that framework together, then I just literally sat down with a yellow pad and did the pros and cons analysis, and a lot more pros fell out than cons. And again, back to managing the risk, I said, all right, if we're going to go down this path, how do we do it in such a way that I don't put my family in jeopardy, or
Sure.
Risk losing my house or something like that? And I had an answer for those things too.
Yeah.
And so then after that, it's the rest is just go commit yourself to it.
Where does money fall for you as a motivator?
So like I mentioned a bit earlier, it would be down the list. It's not number 10, but it's not number 1 or 2 either. 3 or 4 probably. For me, again, the most important thing for me, I've got to want to go to work every day. I've got to love what I'm doing. And I satisfied that by getting those things that I identified were important: meaningful work, relationship component of the work, impacting people's lives, right? That was the most important thing for me, was being in a role where I have the ability to improve somebody's life. So I always felt if you find the things that are most important to you, the money will follow, because you will get good enough at it that you will, become recognized, and enough people will want your skill or your service, and you can make money at it. It doesn't matter if you want to be a wealth manager, or you want to be a journalist or an engineer or whatever. You're going to get good enough that you will be in demand. Just because you love it and you're so passionate about it, you get really good at it, and then the money will come.
How long, not would you have wanted to stay, but how long could you have stayed, do you think, in what you had been doing?
Well, I had a management career running a business and having a staff and a large organization, and I loved it because I knew early on in my career the place for me was in management and leadership. And I loved the work and probably could have stayed doing that and retired from that kind of work. But there were some other things that particular role or environment didn't satisfy for me. And I would say I was probably 60% motivated by what this idea I had could give me in terms of job satisfaction, meaningful work, and 40% motivated by thinking 20 or 25 years in the future and feeling remorse for not having tried it and wondered what would have happened if I had done it. And I didn't want to have that feeling. So all the signs said, just go try it. And if it doesn't work out, you'll do something else.
Try the next thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. I was really motivated by not looking back on my life and saying, you should have tried this, and why didn't you?
That's a risk you want to mitigate right there.
Exactly.
If you had not gone into this line of work, what would you be doing, do you think?
I knew early on professional golf was not going to happen for me, so
that
wasn't even on the list. So, but there were areas that I did have skills at, running a business and leading teams and that sort of thing. And I could have been very happy doing that as well, but not as happy as I turned out to be trying this other thing.
When it comes to career planning, clarify your thinking by writing it down. A simple pros and cons list can help de-risk the process and will often turn what seems like an impossible problem into a manageable issue. Seek out input on your plan from trusted advisors to build support and to build your confidence.
You can't keep this stuff in your head. Part of it is just seeing it on paper helps you sort of work through, okay, that's not so bad. I think I can come up with a way to sort that out. And you see it sort of linearly, which is better than all these things running around in your head at 2 o'clock in the morning and causing you insomnia and whatever else. I'd mention one other thing I did. In addition to the yellow pad and all of that stuff, I went to people who I really respected, who had become my mentors, and I said, this is what I'm thinking of doing. This is the work I've put into it so far. And I asked for their feedback, and I got a lot of support. And really, that's all I wanted. I didn't know it at the time, but in the end, I realized that's what I wanted, was people to say, hey, Mark, I think you'd be great at that. And what can I do to help you? And, all the skills that you're talking about needing in that role, I see in you, right? So I did that as my final sort of justification that gave me the comfort to take the risk, because people who were way more successful than me and usually older said, you know what, I think you'd be great at that. And that was the final thing.
Yeah.
And of course, in my case, I had a very supportive wife. So also in that category, your family members are a great resource. Hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. And, they give you the right kind of support. That's all you need. And then the rest is just go launch.
I asked Ron about what career advice he'd offer his younger self. And if you're considering a career change of your own, he has some advice for you too.
Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Start thinking earlier about what are the most important things to you in career, for example. And ask that question really early on. What skills do I love to use? And the other thing I would say is get skills in a lot of different areas. If you start your career, say, as an engineer, do engineering, but then, be on the business side as well. Get some skills in selling engineering projects. Or the more you can get a cross-section of skills, the more valuable you become. And the earlier on you do that, say in your first 10 years of your job life, it has an exponential effect on the next 30 or 40 years of your job life, because you have built such a cross-section of skills. There's an exception to that. That was true for me, but I always was more of a generalist. Now, there are specialists who achieve the tops of their career. You want to be a surgeon who only focuses on hands and you're the best in the world at it. Great, then you're really vertically a superstar. I think that's another thing is, do you want to be a real specialist and go deep, or are you better as a generalist and cover many segments of business? That ties directly to your personality. And I think asking that question early on in your career would be really, really powerful and beneficial, because it could, A, get you to places of advancement sooner, and B, it can help you from staying in a place too long that is not complementary to what you're trying to accomplish.
For anybody considering a career change, what would you advise?
Plan carefully. Talk to people you trust and respect about your idea. Determine exactly what's involved to make the move. Find people who are already in that work and ask them if you can interview them for 15 or 20 minutes to learn what it's really about. And do all of that analysis and do your pro and con sheet on the yellow pad and see how it falls out. And if the answer is you're finding no major reasons why you shouldn't do this, then go for it. And we talked a lot about, people you respect and talking to them and finding mentors and all that. There's a ton of great material out there in the form of books and, online courses and things like that. Things like the famous, now decades old book, What Color's Your Parachute? Yep. Or another one I love, Do What You Are. Take some of these assessments, like the Myers-Briggs assessment and the DISC analysis and those sorts of things, because it really helps you zero in on what your innate skills are and what the things are that you might love to do. Career options that you would have never in a million years thought of. And it starts you thinking that, wow, maybe that is something I should pursue. It's easy to run away from something, and you'll probably pick the first thing that comes along without carefully thinking about, does it have all the elements of giving me the satisfaction I want? Like I said, mine was meaningful work and analysis and relationship building. And even though you might be unhappy in your current circumstances, the worst thing you could do is just jump to something else. Take a little more time, be a little more methodical about what do I really want. And the other thing I would say that I've learned is don't get hung up on what the name of the job is or the title of the job. You're far better looking at what skills are necessary in that job. And if you have those skills and those are the things you like to use in work, it doesn't matter what the name of the job is. It doesn't matter what industry you're working in. That's what's going to give you the most satisfaction if you're using 80% of the time the skills that you really like most.
What's the next big thing for you?
Well, I don't know if it's a big thing per se, but maybe a lot of small things. The one theme that would carry through whatever I do is this concept of helping people, improving people's lives in some small way. What I'm doing today, I'll be doing, I suspect, for a long time, because it's the kind of work you can do for a long time. Though I also have what I'd call my avocation. I'm a Vistage chair, which feeds me in a very different way than my wealth management work. That's coaching and mentoring senior leaders, executives, and business owners. Also trying to answer a lot of the questions we've been talking about today, which is, what do I want to do with my business? What is it going to enable me to do? What kind of life will it allow me to have later on in life? And so the concept of mentoring and coaching is a really important theme in my life, and as I say, it's become my avocation and something hopefully I'll be able to do for a long, long time, probably well into my 80s.
What skills do you love to use in your work, and why? Ron loves using his skills in relationship building, analysis, and managing risk to help people address their biggest life and career questions. Whether your career is your passion, a paycheck, or a pain, I hope today's episode has informed, inspired, and challenged your own relationship with work. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more episodes of So Called. If you enjoyed today's episode, please let us know. Subscribe and leave us a review. So Called is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and wherever you get your podcasts.